Hi and welcome once again to the Musicians Lab. The Musicians Lab is a page, it is a channel that helps the musicians out there to build their music, to be able to understand their instrument and music in general. So we have two platforms, the Facebook and the YouTube platform. So the YouTube name is Yannick Sai and the Facebook name is The Musicians Lab, as shown on the screen right now. Today is the second part of our last video on 251. So if you haven't watched it yet, you can go back later and watch it from this same page, Facebook page that this video has been uploaded from. And today we want to talk about some extension that can be added to either the major or the minor 251 chord progression. And we're starting right now. In our last video, we defined the 251 and we also identified two types of 251s, which were the minor 251 and the major 251. In a major 251, the 2 is minor, the 5 is dominant 7, and the 1 is major. In a minor 251, the 2 is minor 7 plus 5, the 5 is minor 7 or either dominant 7, and then the 1 is a minor. So what we're going to do today is add extension to this minor or major 251 chords progression. So first, let's know what an extension is. Extensions are sets of notes above the main or the standard octave. Let's say, for example, in C, the standard octave start here. On a guitar, the standard octave of C actually start here. Do, re, mi, fa, do, la, ti, do. So from that lower note of do to the higher note of do is called the octave. So this is the standard octave of C. And here we have another octave of C, but which is above or which is outside this standard range, this standard octave here. And notes that will be upper this octave, this is another do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. So above this standard octave, okay, any note that will come here also will be called an extension. But don't be confused. In this C chord, I have the 1, do, mi, and so. So we are not going to take do, mi, so in the second octave here as extension. We are going to take any note that is out of do, mi, so, and which repeats above the 7th. So from the 7th going, any note that is not part of this, do, mi, so, and repeats in the octave will be called an extension. So let's quickly find our extensions here. So starting from that C above the standard octave, C, we are going to play the scale of C and find our different extension. So C is part of do, mi, so, okay? So it's not our first extension here. So moving, so we've played do, re. So re is not part of do, mi, so, okay? It's not part of the chord of C, but it is here at an upper octave. So D will be our first extension, okay? So notes that are not part of this chord and which are here above this octave will be called extension. So re is our first extension, which is D in the key of C, will be our first extension, and it will be called the 9th extension. All right. So going forward, we have re, mi, we have E here. E is not an extension here in this case. E is also part of the chord of C. So we have do, mi, sol, we have E here. Okay? So it won't be counted as an extension. So let's go forward. And here we have fa, which is F. So F will be our second extension because F is not part of the key, the chord of C here, right? Okay? And it is repeating right here in the second octave, so it will be called the second extension and it will be called the 11th extension. I'm going to explain you these numbers right after this. So this is the second extension, which is the Fa. So Fa in the upper octave will be called the, which is the fourth, which is F, will be called the 11th extension. So let's go. So we've played Do, Re, Mi, Fa. So G here will not be an extension because it's part of our chord of C here. Okay, so we are not going to take it as an extension. Let's move forward. So La. So La here, which is A, will be our third extension. So and it will be called the 13th extension. So let's move. La, Ti. Ti is the major seventh, and we said all notes above the seventh. So seventh is not counted here as our extension. So we're going to have three types of extension here. We're going to have the ninth extension, which is the repetition of Re, which is D, the second degree in the upper octave. And then we have the 11th extension, which is the repetition of the Fa in the second octave, which is F here in our case of C major. And then we have our last extension, which is A, and which is called the 13th extension. So why these numbers? These numbers refer to the position of the note in the tonality. When playing the C major scale, we have one Do, which is C, which is considered as the first degree of the tonality, and we are giving it 1. Do, Re will be 2, which is D, will be 2. Mi will be 3. Fa will be 4. So will be 5. La will be 6. Ti will be 7. And the same Do in the next octave will be 8. And we are still playing the scale of C. So from C, then we go, which is 8, we go to another D, which is Re in the upper octave, and that will be called 9. The E, which is Mi, will be called 10. And then the Fa will be called, which is F, will be called 11. And then the So will be called 12. And the La will be called 13. That's why we say the 13th extension. And the T will be called 14. And then the Do, the third Do in the third octave, will be called 15. So now when we say 11, 13, and 9th extension, you know what we are talking about. So let's move to the next step. Okay, so we are going to take a 2-5-1 chord progression as example. And today we are going to choose G. So we are going to play the minor and the major 2-5-1 on G. And we are going to add these 3 extensions on each chord. So on a major 2-5-1 on G, our A, which is the 2, will be minor, okay, and the D, which is the 5, will be dominant 7, and then our G will be major. Okay, so now we are going to start with the 9th extension and see whether possibly we can add our 9th extension. So we are going to start with the 9th extension. So on the 2, I'm going to add my 9th extension. The 9th extension here is going to be a B because we are in A. In A, the 9th extension is the repetition of the 2, which is B here in the upper octave. So we are going to have another B here. So we are going to play our minor chord and the 9th extension. So what we're going to have now will sound like this. Okay. So this is our A minor with the 9th extension, and this new chord or this extended chord is going to be called A minor 9. So it's no more A minor, but it's A minor 9. An A minor with a 9th extension. So our 5 here is a dominant 7 chord. Okay? And now we are going to add our ninth extension. So this is the dominant chord right here. Okay, and this is the ninth extension. So on D here, which is the dominant 7 chord, the ninth extension will be E. So we are going to add E here on the dominant 7 chord, and it's going to sound like this. Or you can even add the fifth. So we have now not C dominant 7, but we have C dominant 9. So a C dominant 7 with a ninth extension, and it will sound like this. And the last chord, which is G major, we are now going to add the ninth extension, and it's going to give us a G major ninth chord. So now we're not going to have a G, but now a G major 9. So a G major with a ninth extension, or you can even add the 7, and it's going to sound like this. So now let's move to the 11th extension. So we are going to see whether possibly we can add the 11th extension on each chord of this major 251. So the first chord is A minor. We are going to add the 11th extension. And I told you that the 11th extension is the repetition of the Fa, or the 4th degree in the upper octave. So here, if we are in A minor, okay, the A minor, the 4th of A is D, and D in the upper octave is going to be called D11. So we are going to play a minor chord, okay, which is A minor with a D. So that's going to give something like that. So our G now is going to be a G minor 11, and this is a chord that sounds perfectly good, man. I like this chord. So we're gonna have something like that. Okay, and then our dominant 7 chord, we're going to add our 11th extension. So now on D, which is a dominant 7 chord, we are going to add the 11th extension, and I told you that it is the 4th, or the repetition of the 4th in the upper octave. So here the 4th of D is actually G. So we are going to play a dominant 7 chord plus a G note. So that's going to give something like that. Okay? Or you can even make it sound better by adding a 9th note. So we're going to have now a dominant 9, okay? And then an 11th extension. But this chord becomes hard to play on guitar, but on keyboard that can go very easily. But I'm going to try to play that chord here. So we have the dominant 7 chord. We have the 9th extension here. And we have the 11th extension right here. So that's going to give something like, okay, and coming back to our last chord, which is G major. G major, considered as the root or the last chord of the 251, doesn't need to add the 11th extension, because the 11th extension is also the 4th extension, so which gives it a suspended 4th chord, which might make the chord sound as an unresolved chord. And here G major is our last chord, so we don't want to make it sound as an unresolved chord, so we are not going to play the 11th extension on our G major chord. So let's move to the 13th extension. So starting from the A minor, we are going to add the 13th extension, and this new chord is going to be called A minor 13. So we have an A minor chord, okay, plus a 13 extension. So we're going to have something like that. And it sounds good also. So the first chord is going to be, which is the 2 of our major 251 on G. The 2 will be minor E minor 13, okay? So So you can quickly check in the box right here, okay? The chords, all the chords are being displayed there. For people who can't see well on the board here, the chords are actually being displayed here in this window, so you can clearly see what's going on the board here. So we have our 13 extension on A minor. So A minor 13, and then the second chord, the 5, will be dominant 7 plus 13 extension. So that's going to be now D dominant 13. So that's going to be something like that. Okay. And our last chord will be G major. But on the G major here, our 13 extension is not going to sound as a 13 extension because it is not on a dominant 7 chord, it's on a major chord. So here, I told you that the 13 extension is the repetition of the 6th. So here we are going to consider our 13 here as a 6th addition, and it's going to be called a G major 6, because G here is not a dominant 7 chord, it's rather a major chord. So the 13th extension is going to be considered as a 6th addition. So a major chord with a 6th addition. So that's going to sound like that. So that 6 of G, which is E here, is going to be considered as the 6th addition, okay? Not the 13th extension. So we're going to have something like. So now we have 2 minor 13, 5 13, and then 1 with the 6th addition. So now obviously now it's sounding, this is pure jazz we're playing right now, because we have a minor 13, okay? So if you hear the top notes of the extension, how they sound on this chord, it's just great. So we have. Alright, so let me quickly summarize. Okay, so all what we did was just adding extensions to the major 251 progression chord. And we discovered 3 kinds of extension, or 3 types of extension. So the first extension was the 9th extension, the second extension was the 11th extension, and the third extension was the 13th extension. So that's what we learned today, that's what we played, and I'm going to play all of them. So this is the major 251. So minor, dominant 7, major chord, and I'm going to apply the first extension that we learned today. Okay, so that's going to give the 9th extension, that's going to give something like that. So there is a 9th extension in every chord that I just play in the 251 I play. So the 11th extension will sound like this. And then no extension on 1, because it will make it sound as an unresolved chord, as I said earlier. So we're going to have the 11th extension on the 2, okay, the 5, and then on the 1 we're just going to play a major chord, okay? And then the 13th extension, that's going to give something like that. So in the case of the 1 here, it's not going to be a 13th extension, but rather a 6th addition. So this chord is going to be called a G major 6, not a G13, because this chord is not a dominant chord, it's a resolved chord, and it's called a G major 6. So these are the 3 extensions: 9, 11, 13, all for today. I don't want to make a long video, so next time we're going to learn these 3 extensions. We're going to play them on a minor 251 and see how they sound. So thank you for staying connected to the Musicians Lab. You can like and follow our Facebook page and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a bunch of videos there that you might also like as well. So until our next video, take care of yourself. Peace.